Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 94248. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Vale Jewelry Workshops. Vale Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@valejewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. So you have a business that is looking to set off and reach for the stars. You have a goal or have targets, but you do not know where to start or where to go. You want to transform your business, have a structure, or even have assistants. Then guys, look no further than Olive & Palm. Olive & Palm are a business consultancy firm that specialise in transforming your company into becoming the best it can be. With expertise in digital and agile transformations, they will bring cutting-edge strategies, innovative solutions, and first-person approach to make sure your vision comes to life or get to the next step. Olive & Palm have worked with names such as EasyJet, British Airways, Boots, American Express, Specsavers, Sports Direct, John Lewis, and so much more. So why pick Olive & Palm? Because not only do they have years of expertise and big names behind them, but they are passionate and they do care. They are determined to help you reach your goals. So if you want to get in contact with them, dial on their number at 07555 00041, or you can even email them at molly@palm-olive.com. Again, their phone number is 07555 00041, and again their email is molly@palm-olive.com. Hey guys, how's it going? Rhys here of Creative Space Podcast, and back with another brand new episode for you. And today's guest, I have the pleasure, and I think it's the first time ever, I have an Academy Award winner on the show. My first ever Oscar winner on the show. His name is George Chakiris. George Chakiris is an Oscar winner, of course. He won his Oscar for portraying Bernardo in the 1961 musical classic of West Side Story. He has performed with many giants in Hollywood, including Yul Brennar, Marilyn Monroe, Charlton Heston, and so much more. It was such a pleasure to listen to George Chakiris' stories about how he started out in the business, how he worked with so many great people in film, TV, and theatre. He talks about meeting the royal family. He talks so much, and it was such a pleasure because talking to him about old Hollywood was so fun and so engaging. It was such an honour to speak to George about his career. It was so much fun. And also we talk about The Corn is Green, him performing it, trying to do a Welsh accent, and I must say I gave him the honour to say he was an honorary Welshman just for trying, you know, and I really really enjoyed it. But without further ado, it's me and George Chakiris on Creative Space Podcast. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Well, it's nice to meet you as well, gosh. Haven't
Yeah, I mean,
done, you know what? Some friends of mine were talking about podcasts and Zooms and so on, and they thought that with a podcast it was not visual. And I said, no, of course it's visual, but and it is. So there we
yeah,
go.
no, that's absolutely fine. Um, it's really intriguing because where's your friend from? 'Cause is he from? Where's he from? The one I was just speaking to just then.
Say that again.
Where was your friend from? Because he's got a particular accent. Where's
Yeah,
he originally from?
Scotland,
Scotland.
Scotland. Yes,
Oh, never. I mean, I'm
not
from
too far
Wales,
from.
so
And you're Wales?
yeah, Welsh. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. You know, when I first got the message that we were going to be doing this, I re years ago I did a play called The Corn is Green, written by Emlyn Williams, and so I always feel I have this affinity for Wales and being Welsh and so on because I love doing that play so much. Yeah.
But you know what? It's funny because it's on my list of questions. It was. And I was going to start off with that, with the play itself, because I know you've done West Side Story. I know you've worked with Marilyn Monroe. But when I did the research and saw you did The Corners Green, I was like, as a fellow Welshman, I was like, I must know how close you felt to the play and with the character.
You know, it's one of the best times I've ever had in my life because first, I love the play. We had a wonderful director, and Eileen Hurley played the teacher. I don't know if you know who Eileen Hurley is, but let me tell you, Eileen Hurley played in Laurence Olivier's version of Hamlet. She played his mother.
Oh
She was
wow.
much too young to do it, but she played it, and of course, played it beautifully. So she is from the English theater. So I had the blessing of this wonderful writing by Emily Williams. He sent me a couple of letters as well, by the way, that I just loved, you know. And and there was a minister at one of the churches in we did it in Chicago, who was helping me with my Welsh accent and all. But it was just, and also we were scheduled to play. I'm not sure. I'll say 14 weeks or something like that. But it was such a success. We played much longer. Uh, anyway, I could talk about the Corners Green forever because I really, really did love it. And also, it was my first theater experience after West Side Story.
Hmm.
So
Did you feel?
I,
Yeah. Did you feel like it was a great relief then that you went back to the stage properly to do something
yes.
that was not West Side Story heavily themed then?
Right. And going back to the theater, well, I hadn't done that much theater. My theater experience basically was West Side Story in London
Oh, right.
for a year and a half. So I was a novice even to the theater, but I love the theater, and I think I was so lucky to to go back to the theater, so to speak, with that particular piece and with Eileen Hurley and with Emlyn Williams and all of it. So I still have my props. So
Well,
because it means that much to me, you know. And I guess being Welsh, even though I'm not, it sort of hit a chord with me. I loved it. I loved it. Yeah.
do you know what? In Welsh we say da iawn, and da iawn means well done, and also diolch, diolch yn fawr, which is thank you very much.
Oh God. Well, I never had to learn that, I don't think. But
Well, I'll tell you a funny thing, right, with Wales. The population in Wales is only 3 million, but the population per person who speaks the language is very low. Through history, it's been very oppressed, and it
why? So there's not an effort to maintain the language across the board?
no. So there has been. So I think it was sort of between, let's say, in the 1800s, which was sort of, I think, was the last time, like the last period where I don't want to sound very anti-English by any stretch of the imagination, but in through history, the English were trying to oppress the Welsh by not letting them speak the Welsh language. And it was in the
Wow.
1800s that they were trying so hard to keep it at bay. But then through the 1900s onwards, even now, the the percentage is gone higher now of Welsh
Mhm.
speakers coming back. Slowly but surely, because what they're trying to do is have as little English speaking schools. They're not trying to get rid of it per se, but they're trying to have more Welsh speaking schools than English speaking schools, because so that the Welsh language will not die, basically.
Hopefully not. Of course not. It'd be wonderful for it not to die. So the main language used in schools is English
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and not Welsh. Yeah, okay.
And but I started, I mean, out of five grandkids that my on my mother's so my mother's parents' side, there's five grandchildren. And out of all five of us, I'm the oldest. And I went to an English speaking school, and all the rest of my sister and my cousins all went to a Welsh speaking school. And fair play to all four of them. Well, I say three of them at the moment because one of them's only seven, but three of them they've tried their best because they know how much I'm very proud to be Welsh, and they know that Rhys wants to
Yes.
speak it.
Yeah.
You mentioned when you mentioned Emlyn Williams though, that must have been because Emlyn Williams is celebrated highly in Wales, especially the likes of Richard Burton, Anthony Hopkins, etc. But Emlyn Williams,
Yes.
I mean, I think the man's a genius. I got his play actually, The Corner Screen, somewhere in my cabinet somewhere. But what was that
Yeah.
like to be working with him? What was it like?
Well, sadly, I never actually met him. But well, I suppose when he found out that we were doing his play, he sent me. Remember the air letters that we used to use a long time ago?
Hmm.
It was it was something you unfolded and you wrote it and you folded it back and you would just put it in the post. That kind of letter. I have two of them from him, and they're flattering. Anyway, just to have in my hands an air letter from Emlyn Williams is meant obviously meant a great deal to me. I was sorry I didn't get to meet him in person, but we were in Chicago and I guess he was abroad. Yeah.
When it comes to acting, um, one of the things I looked into is one of the last credits that you had, and it's all connected to the UK as well. It was the last of the summer wine. I looked at that and I was like, where did that come from?
Right, really, where did that come from? And when gosh, the producer of that show was such a lovely man. He just could not have been nicer. And it's I felt, to be perfectly honest, not up to the task as I should have been
Mm.
doing that piece because it took a while to learn that particular cup of tea and how to use the material and so on. But despite that, uh, I loved it. Everyone attached to the show, but especially the producer whose name I can't remember right now, but he was. And I don't remember. You say, how did that come about? I don't remember how that came about either. Maybe um, I don't know if it was a request from him to, am I available kind of thing with an agent, and you never know how things happen. But I don't recall exactly how it came to be. But I was very glad that it did come to be because and for we were on location and what village, what town was Jane, not Jane, who wrote Jane Eyre? I can't think of it.
Oh, now you're talking. I can't
Yeah.
really remember. I'm gonna have to look it up now. One moment.
Well, it was in the village where she had lived, the author of Jane Eyre. And we got to see the house that she had lived in was for sale at that time. And I'm so
Uh,
tempted to, yeah.
so her name
Uh,
was Charlotte. Oh, Charlotte Bronte. So that was
Bronte,
Thornton,
of course, yeah,
Thornton
yeah,
in Yorkshire.
yeah, yeah. So, anyway, all these sometimes even very minor connections it can be quite meaningful because just a small world again, a small world department. I one of her one of her films was on television, so I got to see it again, and I just thought of something else that I always hate to say this because I played Rochester. Could you believe?
Yeah.
Very miscast. In a touring company in England. We played different cities, and I worked with wonderful Barbara. I can't remember people's names. But anyway, so I did play Rochester, and the producer wanted me for it, and what I did at that, maybe you don't want me to say all this, maybe it's a waste of time, but for that particular project, I thought they sent me a script. That's right. They sent me a script, and I remember thinking I liked the script, but I'm superstitious, so I went no further until I got the work permit, and I picked the script up again and found, in my opinion, it was quite awful. He had lost all the passion of the play in the writing and in his the producer, director, and writer. He did it was all his on his shoulders, and his name was Charles Vance, um, and uh, and so I had a very good friend of mine who's a really good writer here. We read the book first, and then we read the play, and we decided what we thought was missing in his version, theater in the play that he had, the theater version he had written. And we spent it was such a wonderful time working with another writer on that piece of material because it is very beautiful. Anyway, but my friend, her name was Mary. She said, "George, let's work on it now, so that when you get there, you don't at the last minute start telling the producer, well, what about this and what about that? And just have it ready to hand it to him and let him see what he thinks." And that's what we did. And he bought not much of it, but anyway, so I know you weren't, but we started with Wales, and now I'm on to Rochester. Sorry, only because it made me think of it somehow. And Barbara Murray, if you remember, Barbara Murray was in it as well. She was lovely. Anyway, I'll be quiet and let you talk now.
Oh, hey, you're the guest. I love to listen to stories. So if you got stories, you crack on. Anything that you want to tell me. Um, but there was also with Last of the Summer Wine, obviously British humor and American humor are completely different. So what did you notice in terms of the British humor compared to American humor? What was the differences that you noticed?
Ask me that again. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So, did you notice any difference between the British humor when you did Last of the Summer Wine compared to any American comedy that was done in the States?
Well, there is a difference, but I realize I'm not going to be able to tell you what the difference is. I love British humor. I mean, I think it's the best, you know. I've spent a lot of time in England over the years. I bought a house outside of London in Surrey once upon a time as well, and so the starting with the West Side Story experience, where we were so wonderfully welcomed by the British theatre community as well. We got to know everybody. It was when the Royal Court was at its peak, with wonderful people like Lindsay Anderson and Peter O'Toole and Albert Finney were rising stars, but they weren't stars yet. And so it was at that time, it was, and you know how when a performance is over, people will sometimes go to somebody's flat to have a drink and visit and so on. So that's how I met so many English people in the theater, and some that I got to know and work with as well. Just got to know them socially and because they were so good to us. But well, that you know, when I think of American humor, probably incorrectly, I go to Saturday Night Live,
Mm.
you know, and I never think they're that funny. But I had a friend from Paris that I was working with who just happened to be here in town, and Saturday Night Live was on the television over that corner of the ring, and he didn't get it at all. He wondered why everybody was laughing at that, you know. So there is a decided difference, and I wish I could articulate it because I do love British humor. Yeah, socially and professionally,
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I always say this that there's a dry sense of humor when it comes to British humor.
Yeah.
It's just yeah, simple. Yeah, it is what it is. And here's the funny
Yeah.
side of it, which I just
Yeah.
think is incredible. Um, when it comes to the West Side Story, um, and I'll get on to the other parts of the career before West Side Story in a moment, but West Side Story, I look at that film now, still popular to this day, especially when you had the remake with Steven Spielberg at the helm directing it, etc. But you started off in the theater, was it? You started off in the theater with West Side Story before it became a film. Am I right in saying that?
West Side Story was before it became a film. Say that again.
So, did you do the stage version before the film?
In London at Her Majesty's Theatre for a
Yeah,
year and a half. We met Princess Margaret, we met the Queen, we met
yeah,
it was wonderful, yeah. And I met lots of my new British friends that were friends for the rest of our lives. So I there was something uh, about England, I guess, starting with the humor and so forth, that felt very close to who I was as well. I really, I felt I was home because I was that comfortable with it. But yes, I played Riff in the London production of West Side Story that opened, I think, in 1955. Wow. Um, I just had the I had a wonderful time. It's such a beautiful piece. West Side Story is such a beautiful piece. And Riff was one of the main characters. And I just, I don't think I ever stopped to think about what was happening. But when I look back, everything I was doing at that time, everything was just felt right. It felt comfortable. I was somehow, I'll use the corny expression, feeling at home, but it did feel at home. That's why I wanted to buy a house, because it was, it just felt I belonged there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't blame you because if you feel like home is where the heart is, you got to
Yeah,
go and be
yeah,
where the heart is.
yeah,
When it came to the film, there were obviously two directors. Of course, it was Robert Rhys and there was um, Jerome Robbins. Obviously, two
the
directors.
roundabout. Yeah,
Jerome Robbins. Obviously, Jerome Robbins was in charge of the choreography, and Robert Rhys was in charge of. If I'm right in saying, like the acting side or the musical side, if I'm
right.
right.
Well, let's see. First of all, I remember working on the film. I worked on it for, I remember, 8 months altogether. And I got a leave of absence from the theater for 10 weeks. And I was working on the film for 8 months. Um, to me, there was no separation between Bob and Jerry. Uh, in my opinion, everything that to me, everything came from Jerry. Bob Wise was a quiet, wonderful man. Had done so much in film and did so much in film after that as well, and one of the nicest people in the world. But it was Jerry who was, as they say, on the floor working with us. It wasn't Bob. Bob was sort of like a father figure in the back, I guess, surveying everything to see everything was going as he thought it should. But he was not actively directing any of us. Yeah.
When it came to you being directed by Jerry Robbins, then.
Yeah.
how generous was he when he came to doing the choreography, doing the directions with you for the sequences?
Well, I remember. First of all, I'll go back again to my first experience with West Side Story was the theater version in at Her Majesty's, and the first day of rehearsal at the Winter Garden Theater in New York. That's where we rehearsed. We all got in a semicircle on the stage, and Jerry stood there and said, I can always remember what he said, we have 3 weeks to learn this. So the first thing that I remember right away is, oh my God, am I going to be, am I going to learn it fast enough? You know, that. So I felt insecure. But for the London, listen, I always feel it's, I always feel it's very important to say that, first of all, West Side Story would not have existed were it not for Jerome Robbins. It was Jerry it was his idea. He brought it to the theater, of course, with some amazing talents, Stephen Sondheim, Leonard Bernstein, Arthur Lawrence. And so when it came to the film was kind of again, Jerry was on the floor working with us, whether it was dancing or a scene, and Bob Wise was the sort of the father figure in the back. Now, let me give you an example of how each of these guys worked as directors. I can't really give you a clear picture, but I can tell you a couple of things. Working at Her Majesty's on West Side. And I was playing Riff. One day during a rehearsal, Jerry said to me, he said, why do you think he's called Riff? And I had no idea because I hadn't thought that way at all. But my point is, he asked me a question that was an interesting question that if you found an answer for it, it could help you in your performance. It wasn't just go here, go there, go there. It was something that was a thought-provoking idea. Okay, now cut to the day after, the day on the set when Jerry was gone. The night before, Robert Rellier, who was Robert Wise's, pardon me, assistant director, and he was great, called me. I was back at my apartment, and he said, I'm paraphrasing slightly. He said, we're going to stop what we were doing, and tomorrow we're going to go into the drugstore. And I thought, well, okay. So the next morning, I got to the set, and the first person I saw was Rhys. And I was in costumes on and ready to work and ready to do the drugstore scene. And Rhys came up here and he said, I think he said it a little too happily. I don't know why. He told me that Jerry had been fired. And I couldn't believe my ears. I thought, yeah. So, so we continue working. And so at one point, working on the drugstore scene, during a break, I was thinking about what I was doing. And I went to Robert Wise and I said, I feel as if I could be doing more. And he said, well, yes, you could. I hope that gives you some idea as to how each gentleman spoke to us. And by the way, I remember once it was the day I was not working. Rita was doing, I think, the taunting scene in the drugstore, and she was sitting on the stairs of her dressing room, which was off the set, waiting to be called to work. And I went by just to say hello. And she said, and I have to say it slowly, because evidently one of the things that Robert Wise did before a take, he would say, okay, let's put a little salt and pepper in it now, and let's keep it alive. So I went to say hello to Rita, and she was sitting, as I say, on her dressing room, and she said, and she did say, I'm not making it up, she said, if he says, referring to Bob, if he says, okay, let's keep it alive now, and just one more. She said one more time. You should want. And Rita has gone on record as saying that Robert Wise was not an actor's director. He was a different kind of filmmaker, a wonderful filmmaker, but directing actors was not. I guess I guess I've always thought, he was in a position to hire the actors he wanted, and of course he hired experienced film stars who knew what they were doing and probably didn't need or want much direction. I don't know, but so if does that tell you in any small way the difference between these two directors worked? But it was the heart and soul, in my mind, of West Side Story, whether it's in the theater or whether it's the film, the heart and soul is the music, Leonard Bernstein's score, and Jerry Robbins' direction and choreography. That, to me, is the heart and soul of that piece. Yeah. And I like to give him what I think is full credit, because he had a horrible reputation, evidently, which I never saw as being really, sadistic and mean, and I never experienced that myself. And those kinds of stories get repeated over and over again, and they change depending on who's telling the story. So I always have this idea that whenever people talk about Jerry, I feel protective because I disagree with a lot of the things that people have come to say about him. They're kind of cliche, in my opinion. But both of these men were, again, Bob was great to work with because he just let you alone. Jerry, I always felt Jerry's presence, no matter where he was. And although it wasn't spoken, you just knew, because Jerry was such a perfectionist himself, with himself first. And also, think of what this man had on his shoulders. America is such a lovely number. Yeah, but who thought of it? Who came to work every day, and on whose shoulders was it to create it, and so on? It was on Jerry's shoulders, and nobody ever stops to think of the pressure that was on him, and also being a perfectionist, how he cared deeply about everything that he was doing. I'm just rattling on, but anyway, I would say I'm pro Jerry. I'm not anti Bob Wise at all, but I just say these things to hopefully give Jerry give the credit that is due to him, because again, none of it Steven Spielberg wouldn't have had a movie without Jerry.
Mm.
Jerry
No, I
started
agree.
it.
Agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Because I've had a few guests who have worked with Jerry Robbins before on the show,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they've all said nothing but positive about
Good.
him.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
I'm not being funny, but that man has cemented himself in the theatre and film world for
Yes.
doing what he does best. And from research, I can honestly say, from my experience in doing the research, there's something bad to say about the man. My opinion. Are you looking for the perfect bracelet for a loved one? Would your man be interested in a personalized keyring from his children? Are you looking for the best priced jewelry, whether it be a necklace, ring, earrings, bangle, or even more? Look no further than Crafted Arts. Crafted Arts is a local business based in Barry within the Vale of Glamorgan, and they have a range of all the perfect items you need. If it's for the perfect gift for an anniversary, or maybe it's for someone's birthday, maybe something for Christmas, or you wanted to give someone that perfect gift that will last a long time, Crafted Arts is the business for you. If you want to know more or see what they have in stock, then you can visit them locally at 29 High Street, Barry, Vale of Glamorgan, CF627EB, or you can go onto their website at www.craftedarts.co.uk. You could even email them at info@craftedarts.co.uk. creativespiceworkshop.co.uk, or maybe just give them a call at 07789 942 48. Trust me, it's worth it for the perfect gift. The best thing about Creative Space is that we don't just want to encourage people in being creative in TV, film, or even theatre. We also want you to be creative in a variety of other things as well. So do you want to have experience in making jewelry? Do you want to pick up a hobby but do not know what to take or where to start? Then look no further than the Veil Jewelry Workshops. Veil Jewelry Workshops provides the best experience in teaching you how to make the best sterling silver jewelry. They will help you make a range of silverware including rings, bracelets, and many more pieces. You will learn the basic silversmith skills such as soldering, texturing, shaping, and lots more. Not only do the workshops provide the experience for adults, it also provides the best experience and fun for children as well. So if you want to learn on how to make sterling silver jewelry, and if you're very interested, go onto their website at www.veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or get in touch with them via email at info@veiljewelryworkshops.co.uk or even phone them at 07789 794248. So you have a business that is looking to set off and reach for the stars. You have a goal or have targets, but you do not know where to start or where to go. You want to transform your business, have a structure, or even have assistants. Then guys, look no further than Olive & Palm. Olive & Palm are a business consultancy firm that specialize in transforming your company into becoming the best it can be. With expertise in digital and agile transformations, they will bring cutting-edge strategies, innovative solutions, and first-person approach to make sure your vision comes to life or get to the next step. Olive & Palm have worked with names such as EasyJet, British Airways, Boots, American Express, Specsavers, Sports Direct, John Lewis, and so much more. So why pick Olive & Palm? Because not only do they have years of expertise and big names behind them, but they are passionate and they do care. They are determined to help you reach your goals. So if you want to get in contact with them, dial on their number at 07555 00041, or you can even email them at molly@palm-olive.com. Again, their phone number is 07555 00041. And again, their email is molly@palm-olive.com. There's Oscar winner next to your name. And I look back at the categories in all the films, and you know, my grandfather loved The Hustler, loved Judgment and Nuremberg, and I'm looking at the categories and I'm thinking, damn, this is a Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, Shawshank Redemption kind of competition going on. But when you're up against what was it, George C. Scott and
Clift,
yeah,
Jackie Gleason, and Peter Falk.
that must be some category to go up against. How did you feel when your name was called up?
Well, the best way, I really don't know how to just, it's a feeling of surprise, a feeling of, something very nice has just happened. But I was too naive and too new to the business to fully be aware of what an Academy Award meant to a lot of people and so forth. That was, I mean, I had some idea, but what it felt like, the way I kind of like to say it is, if you buy a lottery ticket, you don't expect to win, but you kind of hope that you might. I guess it's something like that. But even that night, I didn't expect anything. I really didn't. And again, because West Side Story opened a huge door for me, but I had no idea that things would go. In 1962, I think in January 1962, West Side Story was the Royal Command performance for the Queen at the Leicester Square Theatre in London. and Russ and Richard and I were the only three members of the cast who were there. I don't know why, but we were all went to this opening and this evening, and that's the night we met the Queen. And in that evening, for some I don't remember why, that evening there was an intermission in the screening. And so during the intermission, people go to have a drink or Stalls Bar, whatever. I can't remember exactly. But it was during that intermission that Bob Wise was in touch with the West Coast, and he found out that night how many nominations West Side Story had gotten. And he told me about it that night. That's when I first he said, Bob was a very quiet, sort of calm man. He was so nice. So he didn't say it in a wow, wow, wow kind of way. He said it was calm. Yeah. But he let me know that I had been nominated too. I don't know. I don't think I felt anything because I kind of didn't understand it. But clearly it was you know, so you know the building on West Side Story, there are, it's of course Natalie, and then it's Rita, Richard, and Russ. And then in much smaller size is my name, because at that time nobody bothered me with it. And, you know, I didn't mean anything I didn't deserve better billing or anything like that. So, and I didn't. But after the film, that's when the Mirage Company assigned me to a picture deal, and I was suddenly, I'm not even sure how I felt about it, but I was starring above the title with Yul Brennar and Dirk Bogarde and Claudia Cardinale and everybody, you know. But so it was a pretty dramatic shift in things for me. And I didn't quite, I was still so naive and so new to the business in that way that I didn't even quite understand that. But that's West Side Story was, I think I can say anybody who, I'm speaking of the film now because I'm not sure. Listen, Sheila Rivera was a great friend, but I never got to see her do it with Sheila. Also, she did it with us in London, the play. Where was I going? I think in the film of West Side Story, you know, the atmosphere and the feeling during the rehearsal and during the filming and during everything. It was a event called Golden Studios here in Los Angeles. The feeling, it's like the word was out, something is going on with this thing, you know, and people would come to visit and watch his work and so on. So, and that, it did have an extraordinary kind of feeling because for different reasons, I guess. First of all, because we loved working for Jerry, no matter how hard he was. And also, we felt, it was never spoken, but we kind of knew, looking back, we were doing something good. We were really doing something that was quite wonderful. I remember during one of the breaks, I was standing out in the alleyway, and there were two gentlemen from the front office talking to each other. And I remember that one of them said, talking about the film in progress at that time, we don't know if we'll have commercial success, but we feel we might have an artistic success. So anyway, so I remember sharing that. And, but again, we had, there's something about, you know, in theater versions of West Side Story too, when you get, no matter who does it, whether it's at a high school or at a university or whatever, there is something about that piece that, and it's also a piece that really for younger people. So younger people get to work on a piece of such quality. And again, it's not spoken, but it's felt. And everybody in that situation, because I watched a few companies like that, and they are so involved and they care so much about what they're doing. And am I right with my character and so on? I mean, it goes, the feeling and the thinking exceeds almost everything else that we've ever worked on, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
I
don't,
mean,
I don't think that's an exaggeration, you know?
no, it's not. I
Yeah.
mean, West Side Story is, I think, is special as well, and it stands up there with
Yeah.
a tremendous amount of other films and theatre musicals that will live on,
Mhm.
stand the test of time. West Side
Yes.
Story.
Mhm.
Um, Another one that will stand the test of time is, I think, for you as well, working, even if it was just for a scene or a dance sequence, was with Marilyn Monroe. Um, to I want to be unique when I ask the questions, but I feel like the questions have already been asked and you've given the answers. But I'll just go ahead and ask anyway. But what was it
Well,
like to work with, dance with, be in the same scene as Marilyn Monroe?
yeah. Well, that number, the gentleman for Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, that's the number, was choreographed by an amazing choreographer. His name was Jack Cole. You probably know who he is because he did. And by the way, after that film, Marilyn wanted Jack Cole and no one else ever to do anything if she was doing something with movement. And she was right. He was, and I was a chorus dancer, and the dancers in town, the two choreographers, the dancers most wanted to work for were Jack Cole and another gentleman whose name was Robert Alton. He was wonderful too, very, very different in styles and so on. But those were the two men that all the dancers really wanted to work for. So working for Jack Cole, the I didn't pay any attention to anything around me except trying to learn what he wanted, what we were doing for him. Uh, I wasn't working for any that. So, but I do remember Marilyn came in a couple of times to work by herself with I can't remember the name of the of Jack assistant at the time, but once the film, even working on the film with Marilyn in that beautiful pink dress and all that stuff, your concentration still was on the work and not paying attention to anybody around me. But in retrospect, obviously I was taking things in because what I can remember and I about her was she was very quiet. She was really, 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 really dedicated to the work. When they called cut for any reason, she didn't go to her dressing room. She didn't look at a mirror. She didn't try to figure, she didn't do any of that. She went right back to her starting position to start again, just like we did. And I got to be around her other times as well, in professional situations. And again, the thing I always start with her is how quiet she was. She didn't try to uh, draw attention to herself unless she was working. That's different.
Mm.
Um, but she was also in a film, and I worked in the chorus of it too, called "There's No Business Like Show Business."
Mm.
And one day at the end of a rehearsal day, I don't remember the reason, but we were all invited to have a glass of wine, you know, just so everybody was there. And Marilyn uh, arrived with the two gentlemen. She's very quiet. And the girl who was my dancing partner on that movie was Drusilla Davis. She was a great friend. And uh, Drusilla said about Marilyn, she said, "Why don't I go over there and ask her to give you a kiss on the cheek?" And I said, "No, no." Well, she did it anyway. To Marilyn, who was not far away, and she pointed my and I heard Marilyn Monroe say in response to Drew's request, "Give that boy a kiss on the cheek." Marilyn said, "But I don't know him." I love that response. You know, because she could have nicely said, "Oh, sure." She said, "No, I don't know him." I think these little bits and pieces say things about people. And there was one of the, you know, in she was also, of course, in No Business Like Show Business, which Robert Alton, the other choreographer that the kids always wanted to work for. And there's in that film, her character does the heat wave number. And Robert Alton was a very important choreographer and been contracted to do all the musical numbers for that film. Marilyn wanted Jack Cole to do the heat wave number. And Robert Alton knew that. So what he did, I thought was really very respectful of him to do, he went to one of the screening rooms at Fox to screen a number that Marilyn done in the River of No Return called I'm Going to File My Claim, which is a very double entendre kind of number, because Jack Cole was always sexy, you know, and sometimes it got to be too much, but never. So Robert Alton with his assistants went to the screening room, and a couple of us said, "Can we come too?" So they let us come, and we sat down in front, didn't bother anybody. And that number, I'm going to file my claim, is actually very funny because of the sexual stuff that is, it's just funny. It's so well done by Jack Cole. So we kind of giggled. And Robert Alton and his crew thought it was vulgar. But what he did was he created a heat wave number of his own for Marilyn to look at when he finished. So he had a female assistant who danced in for Marilyn, and he hired four boys to be around her in this number, and I got to be one of the boys picked for that number. So it took about, as I recall, about 4 weeks for him to actually create that number. And the end of 4 weeks, it was a beautiful warm day in California, and that rehearsal studio was great, big. But anyway, so when it was ready for him to show her the number, she came in by herself, no entourage, none of that. She came in by herself. She was very polite, and we did the number for her, and she said, "Thank you very much." And she very, very quietly left. And Jack Cole did the number. So she got what she wanted, is my point. But she was right, because we all love Bob Alton, but we knew there's no one like Jack Cole but Jack Cole. So what he did for her in that, and I think she, after that, wait, in so that would yeah, that was the heat wave number that ended up being done by Jack Cole. Um, why am I telling you this? I've lost my track.
It's all good. It's absolutely fine. I'm really intrigued, really
Yeah,
interested by it. I'm loving every
that,
story.
but and then I remember her watching us do that number, and again how quiet and how courteous she was. Um, and the thing that I really kind of liked, I guess, when I think about it, is that she was quiet.
Mm.
She was, I've thought to myself that I don't know her at all, but I've met Jerome Robbins was absolutely a perfectionist, but I think she was too. When I think about her, I think she was a perfectionist too. She absolutely knew. I don't know how she knew it or what she knew, but something that nobody else around her could possibly know, and that's uh, uh, anyway. She was. And of course, she was so beautiful to look at, and she was so young. She had, well, she did um, Jennifer Blunt. I think she was 24 or something. She was really young. And also this thing of now I go back, I'm sorry to think of Kamala Harris in our last, this election and all that stuff, and a woman and how difficult it is for, it's always been so difficult for women. And I think back to girls who were interested in show business, who were interested in wanting to be in film and so on. They were up against men,
Mm.
just and how difficult it must have been to try to move forward with your life and with your work and do what you want to do. And the fact that she did it so beautifully and became who we all know, was, I think, wow, it's like winning a war, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, she's living on through the legacy anyway that she's
And,
left. She's still a star in her own right.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And you mean today?
Oh yeah.
And
Even today, even the younger generation will go,
because
"Oh,
she,
Marilyn Monroe."
because she remains contemporary.
Mm,
There's nothing dated about her. And she's contemporary. She's now,
yeah.
yeah,
So ahead of her time, basically. Way
yeah,
ahead of her time.
yeah, yeah.
There were two names that I really wanted to mention, and this was after West Side Story. You mentioned Yul Brennar, and it's so interesting to hear Yul Brennar because you both did Kings of the Sun, which I think was a Western, and it's like two actors coming from a musical going into a Western.
Yeah, yeah.
What was that like to work with Yul Brennar, who's performed the King? I don't know the exact number, but thousands of times just playing the king.
Yeah, right, right. And I think that was the last thing he did in his life as well, that was in the theater again as the king.
Mm,
And uh, I think any actor who does that play has to fight the image of Yul Brynner, because Yul Brynner was perfect. He
mm.
was wonderful. And for Kings of the Sun, that was one of the pictures that I was obligated to do for the marriage company, and I seriously did not want to do it, but it ended up I had to do it, and because the, my first reaction to that particular piece was when I saw the costumes. I thought, oh my God, everybody's going to look ridiculous, you know. I didn't say it to anybody, but because I wasn't in a position to be able to say no to anything, you know. So I was I was kind of stuck, I'll say, but Yule, first of all, by the way, he was a wonderful photographer. When he wasn't working, he was always walking around with his camera taking photographs of different things. He was a really talented uh, photographer, and he was a very, very nice man. Because I worked with him at another time with Richard Bridmark on a film called For Flight from Messiah, which was made in Japan. And uh, when we worked on Flight from Messiah in Japan, Yul he lived really well when he was working. He had his personal secretary. He had another gentleman who worked for him as well. His son was with him too, and he had a beautiful Japanese mistress. Nobody tried to hide her. All out in the open, comfortable and everything. And everybody called her Silky. She was a gorgeous girl. And on I'm sorry, on Kings of the Sun, his wife was with him. And so it was a kind of slightly different atmosphere, but he knew exactly what he was a real artist, I think, at knowing how to determine how to do play a role and play it hopefully well and still satisfy what the audience is expecting to see from you. Yeah, I think that was true of probably all of the major stars. You know, it's a Susan Hayward picture, so Susan Hayward has to come up and be Susan Hayward every time, and but Yul. Um, again, it was very nice. He seems to have a really nobody paid any attention to anybody but me. I mean, I was so at the time, that even Yule didn't matter to them. So, but the reason I say that is he found no he wasn't bothered by that at all. His because egotistically that you could be bothered by that, but he wasn't. He was had a wonderful security. I can tell you, on Flight from Ashia with Richard Whitmark, Yule and Richard Whitmark are sort of like opposites, just as people on Earth. And I remember once that Richard told Flight from Ashia, we each had our own story. So the film was three stories. And when you go and rush, you go into the rushes all the time. And he went to the rushes because it was three stories quite often and didn't see himself. It was either Richard or me or something else. And Richard Widmar told me this. He said that Yule tried to get them to rewrite all of that and insert him. And Richard Widmark said, no way. He was not going to let you get away with that, and he didn't. But the reason I think about if I had been in Richard, because I was new, he could have done anything to me and I wouldn't have known. But Richard, being the professional, incredible actor that he is, recognized it and was secure enough himself to say, he's not going to do that to me. No, and it didn't happen. But so these little differences, I don't know.
Another gentleman, another actor, famous for many films, a giant on the screen, Charlton Heston.
Yeah. Well, what comes to mind first is I really liked him. I thought he was a very nice man. His wife was with him all the time, and I couldn't help but notice what a wonderful couple they were. They were really, you could just see it, you could feel it. Another thing I noticed about never call him Chuck. Uh, he did watch Rushes all the time. He took a yellow legal pad to Rushes all the time to make notes on his performance, so he could because he never stopped working on his. I didn't think to do anything like that myself, but as a professional actor, that's one of the thing. That's how he applied to how he thought about work. That you never stop working, and not he'd go to rushes to see to keep track of yourself, and if you should change something, do something different. So he always had the legal pad, and that was a good sign. And the other thing was, James Darren was in Diamond Head. I were talking about the film with Charlton Heston, and Jimmy was such a great guy. We became really good friends, and but they played. I think they played poker sometimes in the evening. I didn't play cards, so I would just watch. But I got the impression that Chuck really didn't like to lose, even at cards. It was funny, but basically, the overall impression of him for me was what a gentleman he was, his wife, and how dedicated he was to work and took his work very seriously. And I mean, the only thing much later in life that I kind of about him was nothing to do with film, was when he became president of the NRA.
Mm.
Thought, well, I didn't like that very much, but that's a different ball game. Uh, but he himself was lovely, generous, very kind. Yeah.
Last question for you now, George. And I just wanted to say as well, thank you so much for taking the time to
Yes,
speak to
thank
me.
you.
Been a long time coming, but thank you so much. I always
You're
ask this,
welcome.
no worries. I always
I
ask this,
enjoyed it.
oh, thank you. No, thank you so much. I always ask this question to all my guests. How do you look back on your career?
Wow. oh, what I could have done, what I should have done. Why did I do that? Why didn't I do this? Well, that's looking back. Yeah. All the, because, I was so lucky, but I didn't know, I was too naive and professionally naive to know how to, how to make use of anything. I didn't know that I was in a position to perhaps to do anything. I had representation of the William Morris office and a manager and a business. I got all that stuff because they come to you once in the comic book. I think once somebody starts to get attention, they get attention, and people want to represent them in the hopes that they will be bigger and make more money and all that stuff. But that was totally lost on me. I really didn't understand that at the time. So I guess the thing looking back is uh, I wish I'd been more experienced about the business itself to try to navigate and maybe have be involved in some projects that have been better than the ones I was doing. Pretty much that. Uh, yeah, because I suppose the material is everything, but whether it's in the theater or it's on television, on film, whatever. I mean, if you have to be lucky to be in something of quality that's well written and all of that, so on. And I wasn't aware of any of that kind of thinking, so I let things unfold as they did, because I was lucky. Looking back, I never had to. I'm not saying I shouldn't have. I should have, but I didn't have to pursue anything because I was constantly working, and I didn't have to try to get work or find a role in something. It's just always coming to me all the time. That was the circumstance at the time. So I was really lucky in that way. And of the things I've done, of course, West Side Story. You didn't ask this question, but I'll say it anyway. I liked a French musical that I did called The Young Girls of Rochefort. I really enjoyed that because I thought it was a really good film. It was musical, wonderful people involved, and an Italian film with Claudia Cardinale that was probably my most favorite thing because it was a beautiful production. She was amazing, and it was in the '60s when Italian cinema was really kind of at its peak. '60s were great for Italian cinema at that time, and it was a true story with a wonderful Italian. And I really enjoyed that, and I think I've seen it once. So if I see it again, I may not feel the same thing, but I thought it was a good, respectable uh, piece of work, and uh, it was quality from beginning to end, uh, and a nice experience. Um, but again, this doing it over again thing. I would I would try to find projects that I would have liked and might have been better, and moved in that direction. And I could have, but I just didn't know that I could. As, so I didn't. But I wasn't unhappy with what I ended up doing because I got so lucky from my first day as a chorus dancer. I just got lucky a lot. So I can't complain, although I would be happy to have made some changes. Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in to the Creative Space podcast channel. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified for more content in the future. Thank you once again.